What up, fam? Welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So confession time. Your boy Clever here is just so tired. And trust me, I know what you're gonna say. But Clever, you're so awesome and sexy. How are you not just brimming with awesome, sexy energy all the time? At least that's what the voices in my head ask me. You know, you guys are so sweet. I think I've narrowed down the issue, though, to a single word: time. In that, there is clearly not enough of it. First, I just kind of assume that it's a bad bit of code here in the Matrix. I mean, why would our robot overlords plan for a measly 24 hours knowing we have to sleep and work and just leaving no time for anything else we want to do? But then I learn about people who are like out getting their doctorate while they have a full-time job and are taking care of kids and learn the piano in their downtime to relax. And this gets me to think that maybe, and this may sound crazy here, maybe I'm doing something wrong. I mean, I know between all of my full-time work responsibilities and making this show, I just feel like I don't have any time to do anything else. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of you feel the same way too. You're awesome, interesting people who could do a lot if you only had that little bit of extra time every day to actually squeeze something in. I, for example, would like to add in some additional skills, maybe learn how to play an instrument, spend a little bit more time reading. So clearly, something needs to be done to rectify this, right? Which brings me to the purpose of this episode. Here, you thought I'm just here to complain. I'm here to teach a thing. For today, we embark on an epic quest to steal the most valuable thing in existence: time itself. So with all that being said, let's not waste any more of our precious and limited time and level up this skill: mapping it out. As with any good quest, it's all gonna start with a map that's gonna lead us through all of our pitfalls and end in our ultimate goal of us becoming Time Lords and masters of our own fate. Now, during my research, I found a whole bunch of different ways to do this, including calendars and apps like Evernote and Keep. But the one that looks like it's gonna work best for my purposes is called bullet journaling. It just looks like, out of all the ones I've seen, that it's the most complete and flexible. Now, this is done in a journal, in a physical book, and I know that seems like carrying an extra thing is kind of a burden, but I actually see that as more of a feature than a bug. And sure, going with an app means I'll use my phone, the thing that is always on me and already full of a bunch of useful stuff, right? But that's actually my issue with it. The fact that it's ever present and multi-use makes it kind of forgettable for me as a planner. It is way too easy for me to open this thing up to jot down a plan and find myself a half hour later just scanning through Instagram, forgetting what I was initially gonna write down. And it's constantly sending me notifications and reminders and all that stuff, and I feel like that I'm gonna lose the signal and the noise if I store stuff in here for a planner. A notebook, on the other hand, is perfect because it's a burden for me to carry around. It has one purpose that I'm gonna design it to do, and it demands my attention, because if I put it down and I walk away, I'm gonna realize the thing I was just holding that has all of my plans in it isn't there anymore. It's kind of cumbersome, but again, it makes me pay attention to it. And bullet journaling in particular looks like a really useful, super efficient way to organize your thoughts, plan out your day, week, month, year, or whatever, and generally get your shit together. Created by Ryder Carroll, the bullet journal method is a system of symbols and collections of information that help keep tasks and notes organized and actionable. For starters, we're gonna make a key for the symbols that make this whole thing work. These are gonna tell us at a glance what kind of information is written there and what state that information is in. The three main ones are: tasks, which are marked by a bullet, are things that need to be done. A line is used for notes, which are facts, ideas, observations, or just random thoughts. Then finally, events are marked with a circle. Using these, you can quickly look at your page and see like, all right, I have 3 tasks to do, and there's 1 event today. Really helps to break up the information so you're not just looking at lines of text on a page trying to figure out what's what. You know what are things that need to be done, actionable items, which things are just notes, thoughts that you have in the back of your head, and which are events that are coming up that day. Now moving on, those tasks are able to be tracked and moved around by changing its signifier. A standard bullet means that this is an incomplete task. Then put an X through it to show that the task was completed. A forward arrow marks that task as being moved to a collection, and a backwards arrow says it was moved to a future log. Both of which I'm going to cover in just a little bit. Finally, a strike through everything marks the task as no longer relevant. So like if you had to go pick up dry cleaning and your significant other already did it, you can go ahead and put a line through that sucker saying that it's a thing that doesn't need to be done. Now you can also add things like stars to mark items as super important, or exclamation marks for particularly striking ideas or thoughts. Cool, now we know what all our little hieroglyphics mean and have a key to reference in case we forget. Next, we're gonna add an index page. This is gonna help us find information that might be scattered throughout the entirety of the book really quickly, and works in conjunction with the next piece we're gonna go over, which is called collections. Think of a collection like a topic or a separate section for a particular grouping of information. So for example, I'll give myself a collection entitled Episode Ideas and write it in my index. Since I'm numbering my pages as I go, I know that that particular collection is on page 9. So if I'm out and about in the world and I have a great idea for an episode, or one of you leaves something in the comments section that's an awesome idea, I can write it down in the collection and easily find it later on without it floating around and cluttering up other thoughts in my head. And if that page that collection lives on fills up, I can make another one anywhere in that book. As long as I remember to add the new list's page number to the index, it's gonna be super easy for me to find. Now you can make as many different collections as you want with a whole bunch of different kinds of information, but the standard foundation ones for bullet journaling are the future log, the monthly log, and the daily log. The future log is the place to list tasks and events that fall outside of the current month. Think of like birthdays and weddings. If something's coming up a few months from now, you stick it in your future log and it'll remind you when that month comes around. The monthly log consists of one page listing the dates and an adjoining page with tasks or reminders for that month. On the page with the dates, you can list more time-specific stuff, like if there is a birthday that month, you know exactly what day that has to be on, so that goes on that date. And on that adjoining task page is just stuff you know has to be done within that month, but not on a specific date. Now, a quick note here too, don't feel like you can only list stuff kind of in the future, right? Like a to-do thing at the beginning of a month. Use this space also to list things that happened to you that month. So like for me, I can put in February 3rd, I broke 2,000 subscribers. That was a big moment for me. It's a thing I'd like to remember. So yeah, that's when that happened, and I could write that down with a little exclamation mark because it was a good day for me. It basically ends up being a list of things that need to be done that month, / a nice kind of thing you can look back on and remember what happened that month. And finally, we have the workhorse of this mother, the daily log. This is where you write the things that need to be done that day, as well as any notes or thoughts or ideas that come to your mind. Now again, this is where you're gonna be spending most of your time. This is your day-to-day list. So just make sure you date them at the top to keep your page from getting really cluttered with these lists, and you know exactly kind of where everything belongs. Not only that, but by dating these, it's gonna help you with the next part of this system, migration. Now remember when we were making the key of symbols, the little arrows I said I'd get back to on? So that little forward arrow says that you either sent something to one of your collection lists or that you forwarded it to later on in time to get done. So let's just say on my little daily log that I'm working on, I list an idea that I have for an episode, and I also have one task that I wasn't able to get done that day. I simply move that episode idea to page 9 where I know my episode collections list is, and I mark it with little arrows, so if I were to look back on that, I know that I moved it somewhere. And then that task, I'm gonna mark that with an arrow too and move it to tomorrow's list, because that's a thing that I still need to get done. And I know it seems like a pain, like why am I gonna mark it and then write it again just below it or on the very next page? And that's kind of part of the beauty of this, right? It does two things. It keeps that task front of mind so it doesn't kind of get lost in the minutiae of your day. And it also forces you to look at it and say, is this a task I really need to do? Maybe that's a thing that didn't need to get done in the first place, so I don't need to migrate at all. I can just strike through it, and it's a thing that never had to get done in the first place. Regardless, it's gonna unclutter your mind. You're either gonna have it on the list so you don't have to try to remember it because it's there reminding you, or you can get rid of the damn thing and not worry about it in the first place. Efficiency! I love it. It's just very elegant and easy to follow. Tasks, events, ideas, they all have an area where they belong. It makes everything really easy to locate and kind of can offload your brain so that you don't have to think about these things as the day goes on. Like for example, you hear about a book you want to read. Rather than trying to remember it and probably forgetting it, let's be honest, you write it down in the section you have of books I want to read. And later on when you're looking for books, you go, oh yeah, I have a whole list here of things that I kind of wanted to read. Same go for like quotes you heard, tools you need to buy, materials for future projects. All of that stuff is just offloaded into your notebook, which you have on you all the time. Easy to get to and use, and it just makes a lot of sense. As you can see, I clearly really like the idea of this thing. But that's only half of the equation. Like sure, we have our roadmap of things we need to do as we trundle along through life. But we still have the issue of not having enough time in the day to do the things we want to do, right? Well, that's where our next piece of kit comes in. Tracking habits. So as stated before, we only have X amount of hours a day in order to get things done. Say X amount of hours like it's not it's 24 hours. We have 24 hours a day. in order to get things done. Though you factor in the fact that we're supposed to get 8 hours worth of sleep and the standard work week is 40 hours, which equates to 8 hours a day, you really only have about 8 hours worth of free time in which to do the things you want to do. Then you factor in regular life stuff like chores, or if you have kids, going to get them, to soccer practice or whatever. You've got stuff that has to be done, right? And kind of as you go down the list of things that you feel like you have to get done, the amount of time you have to do things that you want to do to improve yourself seems to get smaller and smaller. Now, the real trick here is to be strict with the time you do have, prioritizing the things that you want to get done for yourself. So for me, the things I want to get done is I need to get a backlog of episodes going on so I don't feel so rushed every week to get one out. I want to get in better shape, I'd like to learn an instrument, and I'd like to be able to read a little bit more. So to make sure I keep all this front of mind, I'm going to use that bullet journal we just made and make a habit tracker. A habit tracker is just a visual representation of whether or not you were able to perform a task on any given day or a set time. To make one, I'm simply going to use the monthly log that we already have in our bullet journal. At the bottom, I'll make a key using the first letter or an abbreviation of the habit I'd like to perform. Then next to it, I'm going to list exactly what that habit entails. So in this example, ST represents an hour spent on skill tree stuff, E stands for at least 30 minutes worth of exercise, P at least 30 minutes of piano practice, and R at least 30 minutes of reading a night. With that established, I list my habit signifiers at the top right of my calendar and put one of the to-do task bullets in the days of the week I want to perform this task. Now I have a really simple and clear way to track whether I actually performed that task for the day, week, month, year, whatever. And this is actually really effective for a few reasons. First, it forces you to give yourself a clear goal to accomplish and a time frame to accomplish it in. When said task is accomplished, you get the little dopamine hit for crossing that sucker off and knowing you did a good thing. And we call that reinforcement, and it's super valuable for developing a habit. And finally, it's a really useful tool for you to assess whether something is working or not. So if you fail to meet your commitment, that doesn't mean it's time for you to feel bad about it or punish yourself. That just means you need to rethink, maybe you gave yourself too large of a goal. Maybe like a half hour of doing something is too big for you right now. Maybe 5 minutes worth, something that is manageable. Or perhaps if you look at it, you're gonna say, all right, I can't even afford a half hour to do this thing. What else am I doing? By zooming out like that, you're gonna see like, well, I do spend a lot of time like checking my phone, like little time waster things that you don't need to be doing. And you could be spending doing this really important thing that you actually value. Notice one thing though, all of those things that I listed in my habit tracker, the skill tree episode stuff, the exercise, the instrument, and the reading, that seems like, when you list it all out like that, a lot of things to do every day, if that's how I want to do it every day. But when you look at it, that's only an hour and a half worth of doing stuff. If it only takes me an hour and a half to either develop a skill I want or do stuff that is satisfying for me, even as simple as reading and relaxing and clearing your mind, that's infinitely worth it. That's great, and it still leaves you plenty of time to do other stuff you have to get done. Hell, I could waste a half hour just scrolling through the Netflix menus trying to find something to watch. Ultimately, we all get the same 24 hours a day, and even more importantly, we don't get any of them back. So get the most out of your life and prioritize the things that are gonna make you feel good, and honestly, just make your life something to brag about, right? Now, to further help you along your journey of becoming that interesting, awesome person I know you are, why don't you hit that subscribe button so you know when I release new skills. Also, if you found this useful or interesting, please remember to hit me with that thumbs up below. Finally, if there's a skill you'd like to see me cover, leave it down in the comments section and I will add it to the list. Alright, well I better go. I can feel the sands of time slipping through my fingers as I steadily march towards my own death. Which means I need to get more D&D in before it's too late. And I can see here that I got about 15 minutes before my campaign starts. So, yeah, I'm out of here. But in the meantime, keep leveling up, you.